Hello, my dear friends. My name is Eliza, and today I am here to share a story that has been locked in the deepest corners of my heart. I am 28 years old, a marine archaeologist by profession. My job often takes me to the depths of the oceans, exploring shipwrecks and piecing together stories from the remains of the past. It's a fascinating yet lonely life, as much of my time is spent in solitude, surrounded by the silence of the ocean and the echoes of history. But amidst the wreckage and waves, I found a love story, one that wasn't mine but somehow became a part of me. A story that began with a ship, a tragedy, and two souls destined to meet despite the odds. It is the story of Claire and Edward, one that I discovered during an expedition to the wreck of the Titanic. Let me take you on this journey, one that changed my life forever. It all started 3 years ago, when I was assigned to a team exploring the Titanic. The world-famous wreck had always intrigued me, but this time, we weren't there just to admire its history. We were searching for personal artifacts to preserve and document the lives it touched. Among the relics we found was a beautifully preserved diary, tucked safely in a metal box that had resisted the corrosive touch of seawater. The diary belonged to Claire Hamilton, a 19-year-old girl who had boarded the Titanic with her family in 1912. As I read her words, her voice came alive, and her story unfolded as though she was whispering it directly into my ear. "My name is Claire," the diary began. "I am 19 years old, and I feel like the world is finally opening up to me. My family and I are traveling to America for a fresh start. My father says it's the land of opportunities, but for me it feels like an escape from the suffocating rules of our old life in England." Claire wrote about her excitement and nervousness as she boarded the Titanic. She described the ship in vivid detail, the grand staircase, the glittering chandeliers, and the luxurious cabins. It was a world she had never known, one filled with laughter, music, and possibilities. Her family was traveling in second class, and while the accommodations were modest compared to first class, they were far more comfortable than what she had been used to. She spent her days wandering the decks, sketching the ocean and the people she saw. And then she met Edward. Edward was a 22-year-old artist, traveling in third class. He was on his way to America with nothing but a suitcase full of sketches and dreams of making a name for himself. Their paths crossed one breezy afternoon when Claire accidentally dropped her sketchbook over the railing. Edward, quick on his feet, caught it just in time before it was lost to the ocean. "Is this yours?" he asked, holding up the book with a grin. Claire, startled and embarrassed, nodded. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done if it was gone." "Maybe the sea would have been inspired by your art," he joked, flipping through the pages before handing it back. "These are incredible. You're really talented." Claire blushed at his compliment. "Thank you. And you are." Edward Turner. From that moment, they were inseparable. Claire wrote about how Edward's laughter was infectious and how he made her see the world differently. While she had always lived within the confines of societal expectations, Edward was free-spirited and fearless, living moment to moment. He taught her to let go of her fears and embrace the present. They spent hours talking about their dreams, sharing their sketches and laughing at the absurdities of life. Edward showed her his drawings of the passengers, capturing their personalities with just a few strokes of his pencil. Claire, in turn, shared her hopes of becoming an artist in America. something she had never confessed to her family. But their happiness was short-lived. The night of April 14th, 1912, was etched in Claire's words with heartbreaking clarity. She described the eerie calm of the ocean, the sudden jolt, and the rising panic as the Titanic struck the iceberg. Edward found Claire amidst the chaos. "Stay with me," he said, holding her hand tightly. Together they navigated the pandemonium, trying to reach the lifeboats. But as a third-class passenger, Edward wasn't allowed near them. Claire's family insisted she board a lifeboat with her mother and younger sister, leaving Edward behind. "No," she cried, refusing to let go of his hand. "Claire, you have to go," Edward said, his voice firm, but his eyes filled with anguish. "You'll survive this. You'll live the life we dreamed of. Promise me." "I can't leave you. You have to." He placed a folded piece of paper in her hand. "Keep this, and remember me." With tears streaming down her face, Claire was forced into the lifeboat, her screams lost in the chaos. She watched as the ship sank, taking Edward and hundreds of others into the icy depths. The diary ended abruptly, but the folded paper Edward had given Claire was tucked inside the back cover. It was a sketch of Claire, drawn with incredible detail and care. Beneath it he had written, "Claire, you are my heart, my muse, my forever. No matter where life takes you, I will always be with you. Edward." I sat there holding the diary and the sketch, tears streaming down my face. Claire's story was more than a love story. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. I couldn't stop thinking about Claire and Edward. I wanted to know what happened to her after the Titanic. Did she fulfill her dream? Did she find happiness? After months of research, I found a record of Claire Hamilton. She had survived the Titanic and gone on to become a renowned artist in America. Her paintings often featured the ocean, ships, and a mysterious man with kind eyes and a warm smile. It was clear she had never forgotten Edward. One of her most famous works, The Heart of the Sea, depicted a young couple standing on the deck of a ship, their hands intertwined, gazing at the horizon. It was a tribute to the love she had lost and the man who had inspired her to live fearlessly. Claire and Edward's story taught me that love is eternal, transcending time and space. It reminded me that even in the face of tragedy, love can inspire us to create beauty and to carry on. As I closed the diary and placed it carefully in the preservation case, I felt a deep sense of connection to Claire. Her story wasn't just about loss. It was about hope, courage, and the enduring power of love. As I sat in the quiet of my study that evening, the diary and Edward's sketch on the table before me, I couldn't shake the feeling that their story wasn't complete. Claire's life was meticulously documented through her paintings, but Edward, his story had disappeared with the Titanic, leaving only his memory in her work. Driven by an unexplainable pull, I decided to delve deeper. Surely, somewhere in the world there must be more traces of Edward, his art, his family, his legacy. Little did I know this decision would take me on an emotional journey that intertwined the past and present in ways I couldn't imagine. My first step was to visit an archive of Titanic passengers in Southampton, England, where Edward had boarded. After hours of combing through records, I found a faint trail. Edward Turner had listed his occupation as artist, and his residence as a small town called Harlington. Determined, I packed my things and traveled there. Harlington was a quaint, seaside village, untouched by time. The cobblestone streets, ivy-covered houses, and salty breeze felt like stepping into a painting. It wasn't hard to find people who remembered the Turner family. In a town this small, the stories of a young artist who had left for America and never returned had become part of local lore. An elderly man named Mr. Whitaker, the keeper of a small art gallery, became my guide. Edward was the town's pride, he said, his voice heavy with nostalgia. Everyone believed he would make it big one day. He used to sketch portraits of the villagers. My grandfather still has one. He led me to a small display in the gallery's corner. There, hanging modestly on the wall, was a charcoal portrait of a young woman with soft curls and eyes that seemed alive. The signature in the corner was unmistakable: E. Turner. Mr. Whitaker revealed that Edward's family home still stood on the edge of town, abandoned but preserved as a historical site. With his help, I obtained permission to visit. The house was a time capsule, filled with dust but brimming with echoes of the past. Sketchbooks, pencils, and unfinished drawings lay scattered across a wooden desk in what must have been Edward's room. As I leafed through the sketches, I felt as though I was peering into his soul. One sketch stopped me cold. It was of a ship, unmistakably the Titanic, and next to it was the faint outline of a woman standing on its deck. Her features were rough, incomplete, but the shape of her hair, the curve of her smile, it was Claire. Edward had drawn Claire before they met. I sat back, stunned. Had he dreamed of her before she became real? Or had fate already decided their paths would cross? The question lingered in the air, heavy and unanswerable. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that Claire and Edward's story wasn't just about their brief time together on the Titanic. It was about something deeper. Their connection transcended time, and it felt as though I had become part of their tale, piecing together the fragments they had left behind. As I packed Edward's sketches to deliver to the museum preserving Titanic artifacts, I found a small journal tucked inside a hidden drawer of his desk. Its pages were yellowed, but Edward's handwriting was clear. The journal revealed Edward's thoughts during his journey. He wrote about his hopes, his struggles, and toward the end, about Claire. April 13th, 1912. I saw her today. I don't know her name, but she was standing on the upper deck, gazing at the horizon. She looked out of place, like she belonged in a painting, not in this world. I wanted to speak to her, but what would a man like me have to offer a woman like her? April 14th, 1912. Her name is Claire. She is everything I imagined and more. She told me about her dreams, and for the first time in my life, I wanted to be more, for her, to deserve her. I hope I get the chance to tell her what she means to me. The final entry was heartbreaking. April 15th, 1912. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of leaving her behind, but if she lives, that will be enough. She is my art, my legacy. I hope she knows that. Edward's words stayed with me long after I left Harlington. I returned to my work, feeling like I had fulfilled an unspoken promise to honor their love. But the story didn't end there. Months later, while attending an art exhibition dedicated to Titanic survivors and victims, I met a woman named Evelyn. She was in her late 70s, her eyes bright with curiosity as she admired Claire's paintings. She was my grandmother, Evelyn said, smiling softly. I was stunned. Claire was your grandmother? Yes, Evelyn confirmed. She used to tell us stories about the Titanic, but there was one thing she never spoke about, the man in her paintings. Do you know who he was? I took Evelyn aside and shared everything I had learned about Edward, showing her the diary, the sketches, and the journal. Tears welled up in her eyes as she held the artifacts. I took Evelyn aside and shared everything I had learned about Edward, showing her the diary, the sketches, and the journal. Tears welled up in her eyes as she held the artifacts. She never stopped loving him, Evelyn whispered. Even when she married my grandfather, a part of her heart always belonged to Edward. Evelyn revealed that Claire had kept one final painting hidden, a self-portrait holding the sketch Edward had given her on the Titanic. It was titled, For Edward. Their love story, though brief, had shaped generations. Claire's art, in Edward's words, had transcended time, connecting not just them, but everyone who came across their story. As I stood in the exhibition, surrounded by their legacy, I realized something profound. Love, even when interrupted by tragedy, leaves an indelible mark on the world. It lingers in the art we create, the words we write, and the hearts we touch. And sometimes it finds a way to live on, in ways we can't begin to understand. The story of Claire and Edward wasn't just theirs anymore. It was a story for all of us, a reminder that even in the face of loss, love endures, shaping lives and inspiring futures. Their love wasn't lost in the depths of the ocean. It had surfaced through art, words, and memories, touching hearts across time. And in that they were never truly apart.